What's up guys, the one, the only, the Hunted Reaper here. In today's video, I'm going to be reviewing the Forsaken DLC for Destiny 2. So without further ado, because we've got a lot to cover, I hope you guys like, subscribe, and comment, and let's get straight to it. So the question on everyone's mind is, does this live up to the hype that Destiny and Bungie were creating to make this game? Because Forsaken was basically this revitalized DLC for Destiny. They said it was going to cost a lot more, it's going to cost $40, and then this DLC that we were all asking for, instead of the DLCs that they put out that were just lackluster and terrible. I mean, the DLCs that they put out before, the other two, were the reason I stopped playing Destiny, because it got me so bored of the game. Every mission was terrible, every character forgettable, and I had no reason to go back to it. Now, it's safe to say that Forsaken is leagues better than the last two DLCs, and I'll tell you guys why, and I'll break it down part by part. So first off, let's start with the story. I know we're starting with the story, not the gameplay, but the story's actually really good this time. I was kind of, invested in the characters, and while things do make a tone shift somewhere in the middle of the story, and it takes you to places you don't think you're gonna go, it's a really fun, kind of filled adventure of revenge and finding yourself, and the battle between lightness and dark. And I felt this kind of Star Wars-esque Force battle to it where there's good and there's bad, but there's mixed lines in between. I felt like this is one of the stories where Destiny really shines, this battle between light and dark and not knowing what the difference between that is. Prince Uldren makes for a really well-developed villain, and it's really fun to see him in scenes. The cutscenes are a lot more fun to watch, and I really cared about the story a lot more.
Now let's go to prison!
As well as the supporting characters. One of the supporting characters that stood out for me was the Spider. He's a quest giver in the Reef, and without spoiling much, he's a really cool character that doesn't really do much, but has cool lines and gives awesome lore to the story. Also, talking about lore, there's these collectibles around every single map and every single mission that you can collect. Basically, it's not going to be for everyone, but for people who are interested in the story behind Destiny, it's a great way to kind of get them to play while learning about the lore in it. Now, the story missions are actually pretty strong in comparison to previous Destiny games as well as Destiny DLCs. The characters also make for a great kind of immersion, and you get to play with more NPCs this time around and have more allies that aren't Guardians, and it's a cool little mix-up fighting alongside some special characters that I won't give away right now, especially if you guys don't want spoilers. So one of the things that I noticed in this game was that the opening mission was really strong, but the closing mission was okay. I mean, there's this transition closing mission in the game, and it was decent, and it was a kind of underwhelming boss, but it leads into something more. So it's kind of a minus, but it's also kind of this weird transition, and I'll get into that later. So there's this kind of semi-end boss, and it's not what you'd expect, and it's not that fun. It's pretty like menial and easy, and it reminds me of the older DLCs, but everything else in the game kind of picks up for it. So there are some drops in the game. Not everything is perfect, and sometimes it does feel kind of like you're trying to finish a mission more than not. But most of the time, the missions are fun, and the new enemy types are a lot of fun to play against. You're not going to be facing a lot of the same enemies in this game, and it's a lot of fun to see these new, scarier enemy types. They're darker, they're a little less forgiving, and as well as the missions are a little harder as well. I think that Destiny, Bungie at least, understands that people have been playing this game for a while now, and no one, if you're playing the Forsaken DLC, you're level 30, you've been playing this game for a while, most people have been, and they've been upping the difficulty, especially when you get to the Dreaming City's second location. That's a little further in the game. The difficulty ramps up yet again, and it's a lot of fun to finally, feel the sense of completion when you've actually completed a mission, especially solo, because the bosses are difficult and the enemy combinations are difficult as well. They make you think on your feet and keep moving, and that's one of those things that really helps the game move forward as a shooter. Now, really quick, I'm going to touch base on the menus. The menus in the game, like the director and stuff like that, are a lot cleaner and a lot easier to navigate, as well as the goals are a lot better laid out, so it's less time for you thinking of what you have to do and more time doing. However, when you're in game, the menus take longer to load now, and all your items take longer to load, and that sucks when you're in a strike mission and you want to change your weapon or something like that, and then you have to wait for this thing to load, and it could be 5 to 15 seconds, which is a lot of time. And for something that's as easy and menial and simple as a menu, I think that it's really a big kind of stake in the fucking heart of the flow of the game. And it doesn't ruin the game for the most part, but if you really want to change your equipment mid-game, and if your play style is like that, like mine, it's this kind of punch in the face when you start playing the game and you notice the menus are actually slower than they once were. And speaking of slow, for some reason, I'm not sure how perfect this is, or it could be my connection, but the load screens feel longer in this game. I'm not sure if because there's more game to load, or it's crazier environments because you do battle a lot of enemies at certain times in the game. And definitely in this Forsaken DLC, I think I've seen the most enemies on screen, which is really cool, but I'm not sure how that does for load times as well. The load times, though, are kind of annoying, especially when they're in mid-mission and you see your friends running along and you're just kind of stuck mid-screen and you're like, I'm waiting for you! Now, the new weapons and armor are actually a lot of fun to play around with, and I haven't got the chance to get a lot of exotics because now I'm finally, fleshing out the amount of exotics that I have and trying to get them now that I finished the main campaign. But the weapons are a lot of fun. Props to the bow. The bow is the most fun new weapon I've got my hands on in this game, and it's made Destiny a completely new experience for me. The range capabilities, as well as how grounded it is, as well as fun to use, is nailed. I mean, for some reason, I think this may be the best bow in a video game because it feels cool to use. You feel badass when you get a headshot. And in this game, you can use the bow to your advantage to get multiple headshots, and they come with their own abilities and explosions and stuff like that. It makes the game a lot more fun, and especially as a hunter, which I'm glad they really fleshed out this season, because in previous Destinies, I didn't feel like I was a hunter. I felt like I had this golden gun for some reason, and that was pretty stupid, and I felt like I had knives, but there were no actual weapons in the game that made me feel like a hunter except for the sword. Now, I can go into a mission with a bow and arrow, a sword, and a gun, and then just use my knives to kill everyone as well as the bow and arrow, and it really feels, it's honestly more of an immersive experience being a hunter now. As well as for every other class, the bow is a lot of fun to use, and I think it's one of those things that came into Destiny as a gimmick, but it's gonna stay there as a permanent kind of thing, because I think everyone loves it, and I see everyone in these matches playing it. Now, wrapping up how I'm talking about the story, there's this pivotal moment halfway in, or a little more than halfway in, where you're making this change, and it feels like two DLCs were pushed together, and it doesn't feel as cohesive, but the story still continues and flows naturally. And I don't know how to say that well, and it might confuse people, but when you get to the point where you're supposed to change areas and you're going into the new city, the Dreaming City, you're going to kind of understand that it feels a little disjointed, and this was definitely, it kind of feels like what Destiny did is they got really negative feedback, and they were going to release part 1 of the Forsaken DLC, and what happened was, they got all this negative feedback, and they were like, no one likes this game because there's not much to do in it. So they said, we're gonna clump 2 DLCs together. And while it's pretty cohesive and it works really well, it does feel tonally that things changed. So while the gameplay mechanics and everything like that really feel like one cohesive DLC, the story kind of takes this turn. And while it might have been a regular decision, I kind of feel like it was along the lines of being thrown in at the end or bunched together, but it doesn't really have an impact on the gameplay, on the enemies, on the story, and it's actually still a lot of fun, so don't let that, dissuade you from this game. The new supers are a shit ton of fun, and they've really changed the game up a lot. Now the Hunter doesn't feel as underpowered, as well as there's a lot of abilities for the Titan that has them launching across the map, doing some crazy stuff. The Warlock has some new powers as well. All the powers are really good, and I don't want to spoil them because it's a lot of fun to just grab a power and see what it is, because there are 9 new powers to the game, so it's awesome. Every class has 3 new powers available to them, and it's a lot of fun to play them. There's Void, Arc, and as well as Solar for each of them. It's a lot of fun, and it's a great new addition. I'm glad they didn't just add 1 stupid new super. Having 3 for every class is definitely the way to go. Now lastly, I'm going to talk about PvP. Crucible hasn't changed much, I'm not going to lie. It's the same, it's fun, it's great gameplay, the core gameplay has always been there. PvP has never really had any problems when it comes to Destiny. But PvEVP, also known as Gambit mode, has really took me by surprise. This game mode is so much fun to play, and it leads to some of the most tense, crazy moments. Summoning your primeval or the biggest boss of the game and trying to defeat him, while other players are trying to take you out, pushing other enemies towards your side with light. It's really a scramble to see who finishes faster, and it's a combination between, you know, tactics with enemies and tactics with players. And for the first time ever, we get to see how that would look like, and it's a lot of fun. It's so much fun, and it's one of the game modes that I'm going to be coming back to more and more. I get tired of Crucible a lot because PvP is okay to me. Basically, there's a new guy in the tower. He's there. He's your quest giver, and so they have this whole new thing. It's not like Lord Shaxx is giving you quests. It's this whole new guy. The presentation's really well done, and it's a lot of fun to play, as well as there's this little snippet of time in the beginning of the match where you get to see each other and you get to do your little emotes, and you get to teabag your friends before you get to play the matches. It's just a lot of fun, and it's a really cool social experience as well, and I really like that. The price tag is a bit weird for me because I think $40 is a lot of money when it comes to a DLC, and I'm expecting a lot. So while this DLC is hands down really damn good and the best DLC that has ever come to the Destiny series, can I say it's worth it? I'm not sure. See, but the problem is I don't think it's worth 40. I think it's worth 30, okay? I think the DLC is worth $30. And I kind of feel cheated out because of the last two DLCs as well. So it would have been even cooler if they released this for 20 because Bungie has enough money, but it's 40. It's a little pricey, especially when there's so many awesome games coming out like Red Dead Redemption 2 and fucking Spider-Man and all these awesome games, and then they're asking for basically fucking 2/3 of that price for a DLC for a game that you've already had for a year. So, I mean, it's a great DLC and I do recommend to buy it, but the price tag definitely dissuaded me, and the only reason I bought this game before the DLCs was to actually get my review up before everyone else and stuff like that because I'm a small channel. But if it was really up to me and I didn't have this YouTube, I would have waited like a fucking month for this game to be out. So all in all, I'm giving Destiny 2, The Forsaken, an 8.5 out of 10. And it's because there's a lot good with it. They fixed a lot in the game, and there's a lot more to see. Right now, this review is kind of amorphous. It's going to change because Destiny changes over time. By next week, they're going to be adding more things into the game, like the raid and a lot of other stuff. So I'm going to have a secondary review for that, a week 3 review or something like that. There's a whole new year of DLC for this game. Something I didn't know in the beginning was the fact that there's already an annual pass out, and it's $34. So if you want all the content, it's $74 for the year. You're basically playing for a collector's edition of a brand new game for a year's worth of content. I want to see how that's going to pan out, because if these next 2 DLCs are amazing, it'll be worth it, and I don't mind spending the money when the content is there. But if this is just another cop-out or another false-out, Destiny and Bungie will have lost my trust. They've gained a little bit of trust. This 8.5 is really earned, and I like playing this game a lot more. I'm spending a lot more time in it, and I'm actually having fun. I had fun reviewing it. I had fun figuring out the things of this game, and I had fun figuring out the new concepts. And there are a lot more new things in this game and new ways to enjoy yourself that makes it worth it. But let's see what happens in the future. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys enjoyed me talking. I doubt you're still here. It's 14 minutes. You probably have stuff to do. But if you are, be sure to subscribe, like, and comment, and check out all my other videos on my channel, because there's a lot, and I hope you guys find something you like. So I hope everyone watching this video has an awesome day, and peace out. I'm the Hunted Reaper.